avoided risks. So,
okay. And the third question?
I just had a quick follow-up to my question. Mr. Jones was in last week, and he said that he thought that Croatia still had more work to do. He said he was quite happy with cooperation in general, but when it comes to documents, there's still not able to pursue. So what is your view on this? Is there also a real concern that the applicants will not be able to now? That this is still enough that he's saying, suggesting that he's signaling that his opposition is still quite there, and therefore they could just have to block it out and continue.
So quite a broad range of questions.
Yes. Okay, we will start with the first question. I would say that the two questions which you put forward, the situation in Greece and the euro in general in crisis, and the notion of the European public, they're closely linked. I think there is no substantial direct connection between the situation in Greece and the Croatian economy. On the contrary, we have been actually pretty solid throughout this period of last couple of months. But the problem is the contextual one, whether the European Union will first focus on, let's say, putting out the fire in its own house before looking towards the neighbors. And this is where the notion of the enlargement blues or the enlargement fatigue or whatever other explanation we can have for this particular element vis-à-vis enlargement in the European public. But what we hope is that the EU remains committed to its own already stated declarations. And that is to say that our process of EU accession started 5 years ago. The negotiating framework is very clear. The objective of our accession is not elusive. It's very clear. The process started 5 years ago and it's supposed to end with the accession. Secondly, we do not believe that any of the member states will actually put our own accession treaty to referenda. That is to say that the people who are elected should take the responsibility and then assume and ratify our accession treaty through the classical parliamentary procedures, whether they are unicameral or bicameral. Another element which is linked with this is the notion of referendum in general. We have seen yesterday how close a referendum can be, and how many other unrelated elements can influence this snapshot of the mood of a certain population at a certain day. It was a very nice day yesterday, and the Slovenians are people who take care about nature a lot, and they go out and hike and swim and cycle, and 42% is an excellent turnout given the habits of our neighbors. So we in Croatia will hold a referendum next year, but we will hold it on the issue that will only affect Croatia. And maybe a wider notion is perhaps we should all reflect that the referenda is such a sensitive instrument in the globalized world and the internet time, where the vertical authorities are in a way disappearing in this sort of virtual and media space, that referenda should be held for issues which do not have consequences beyond our own borders. And I think that is the lessons learned of the several fallen referenda in the last couple of years in Europe. So we should think twice whether we should put something to the popular vote if it can have potentially negative consequence for those who are not voting, for instance. And that has been the case with the French referendum, with the Dutch referendum, with the Irish referendum. So we should be careful in not over-exercising this mode of vote. In terms of VIPNet, I'm very happy that you support what the government is doing. I'm certainly aware of this particular issue, and I think it was one of those taxes which was imposed in the general context of the economic and financial crisis. I know that your representatives have addressed the issue with the competent authorities in Croatia, and I'm sure that in due course a solution would be found which will not contravene the acquis, the positive acquis. But we are now at the stage of still trying to be a country which negotiates its membership. So I will not say that we are currently violating any legal rule which regulates the relationship between Croatia and the EU today. What will happen in hopefully, let's say, a couple of months' time is a different issue, but we will certainly address it when the time comes. The third question was on the ICTY. You have seen what Mr. Brammertz has said. I know what the Prime Minister and President told him. I know what the Croatian task force have done. Whether he is entirely satisfied is a matter for him to say. But I know that from our side we are really doing our utmost. And given the fact that out of all the requests, there were more than 800 requests that we responded fully, I don't know what would be the interest of Croatia, political interest of Croatia at this stage of the accession negotiations of a country which is a NATO member already for 14 months, to play some sort of a game with the prosecutor. We don't do this. We have no intention to do that, and the idea is really to fulfill our international obligations in the correct and timely manner, and therefore the opening of the Chapter 23 is in a way related with his assessment, but not only to his assessment, because Chapter 23 is a new chapter in the accession negotiations. It did not exist in this form before, and in a way it summarizes something we have been living with for the last couple of years, and that is the political criteria as such, and that is the Chapter 23 basically today.
Yes. On this issue of the ICTY, I seem to remember that the former prosecutor, after the initial problems, when Croatia started to fully cooperate, appointed Croatia as an excellent example for all of the neighbors in terms of this cooperation.
Yeah, she's now in Argentina, as far as I know.
Yeah. There was another question there.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Joining the topics with your words, but please allow me also to raise some concerns. The Croatian market question. We are, as you know, invested since 2004 in Croatia. We are not the only commercial broadcaster, but one of two major.
Excuse me, if you could just repeat the name of the company. I didn't hear it at the beginning.
Okay.
No, Okay, I'm sorry, I just didn't hear at the beginning. Sorry.
And so we do see a dominance of the state broadcaster, which is the only Croatian broadcaster. And now, as we face the expansion of the digital new markets, we fear even stronger dominance. The question is, what can the state of Croatia do to avoid dysfunctional market?
Should we take more questions or immediately?
Let's address this one.
Yeah, I know that not only RTL but other private televisions with a national concession have raised the issue of the status of the Croatian radio television as the only public broadcasting institution in Croatia, and especially in terms of advertisement and basically the question of whether kako mi zovemo pretplatu na engleskom, fee, but whether the fee which is can be treated as some sort of a state subsidy. And we are actually at this moment in the process of a public debate on the new version of the law on the Croatian radio television. And it is the Ministry of Culture who is the leading ministry in drafting a new law. And this particular new law has been debated by various experts in Croatia. I think that also the representatives of your group had the chance to pass an opinion on it. We have sent the draft law to the Commission last week, and we shall be looking forward to see their comments.